All right. Welcome everyone to the Fit and Free monthly Zoom. Thanks for being on. I know it's different times in our days and different things happen in our lives, and making the priority be here is, says a lot. So tonight we have Lauren Lundberg, a star diving coach on Team Fit and Free, and she is going to be sharing kind of her story in coaching and the ups and downs, and where she's at now, and some tips. Really, the end goal is to get motivation, but also to see a clear distinction about what her business was like when her conviction was this, and what it's like now with her conviction where it is now, and some actual tangible things that she's doing different as well. So that's what you're going to get tonight. So let me go ahead and introduce Lauren. Lauren is a star diving coach, as I mentioned, wife to Caleb, mom to Blake and Kenzie. She's from Gilbert, Iowa, soon to be a former teacher. So I'm sure that's going to be brought up as well. She's been in the business for about 2.5 years, and she's managed to nearly match her teaching income, which is a pretty powerful thing. So Lauren, welcome. Anything else you want to add to that introduction?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. That about sums it up. Yes. So
Perfect.
I'm happy to be here.
Hey, well, thanks for sharing your story and your time. Lauren, let's just start with share a little bit about, how did you picture your life as an adult, as you were the younger version of Lauren?
It's really funny looking back, because I feel like a completely different person from who I was when I was really young. I really struggled in school growing up. And I feel like I always kind of lived in my sister's shadow. She was always like a perfect academic student, and I was not that way. I struggled with self-confidence and didn't perform well. And I specifically remember at a student-led parent-teacher conference, one of my teachers basically saying that I wouldn't amount to anything because of my test scores. And this was in 5th grade. And I was absolutely devastated to hear someone I looked up to say that about me right to my face. And luckily, it kind of lit a fire in me. I was a blue. I'm super shy. I wasn't outgoing at all. And somehow it lit a fire in me to the point where I like to prove people wrong. And I look at where I am now, and I went into teaching, and I fully believe that I went into teaching because out of spite. I got into college, and as soon as I graduated, I was looking for jobs, and finally I got a job at one of the most prestigious schools in Iowa. And so it's just crazy thinking my whole life I was driving towards something that was not my passion, but I did it to prove somebody wrong. So, yeah, kind of crazy to think about that, but.
That's something I bet a lot of people can relate to. I'm like, I completely got a degree in something I wasn't passionate about because I never put any thought into it. So I think a lot of people can relate to that. And you remind me of, I think Darren Hardy said somewhere, someone told him he would never amount to anything, or he shared stories of other people, and that just can either defeat you or light a fire under you. So I can't imagine how that must have felt. And I can't imagine someone saying that. But yeah, lit that fire. How did coaching come into your life?
I go way back. I did one of the very first programs. My very first one was Turbo Jam. I think it was back in 2008. I was a freshman in college, and I came home for summer, and one of my friends had just bought it. And so a couple of days a week, I would go over to her house, and we would jam together. And it was the first time since high school sports that I actually felt good about myself. And I remember going back to college in the fall, I really wanted that program. And, being in college, I didn't have very much money. So I actually swapped my mom, my surround sound speakers that I won at post prom so that she would buy me Turbo Jam. so I would do it inconsistently. I never focused on my nutrition at this point or anything. And, you know, I've continued to yo-yo with my weight, with everything, being inconsistent throughout college. And then about 5 years later, I was scrolling through the news feed and I saw that Chalene Johnson came out with this new workout program called PIO. And Caleb and I were at a point where we were not doing well financially. I was working as a teacher's aide and I was just getting ready to start my first year of teaching. And I presented just this program to him and I really wanted to do it. And I convinced him that if I bought it, if we spent the money on it, that I would do it from start to finish. And doing that right there is what started this all for me. And a few months later, one of my friends from college invited me to a 4-day clean eating challenge. So, you know, this was a few years back. It was a 4-day challenge back then. And I had no idea that she was a Beachbody coach. I just went into this challenge and I really wanted to focus on nutrition. So I was really intrigued that way. And I remember at the end of the challenge, I kept watching her on Facebook and kept seeing all these changes that she was making. And I just messaged her and I was like, are you a Beachbody coach? Because it was a pretty new thing to me back then. I didn't have very many friends that were coaches. I think she was probably the only one. And pretty much she said, yeah, that's what I do. And I signed up right away because I was so tired of yo-yoing. I really wanted to make it a lifestyle. And at that point, I fully committed because, like I said, I was a prove you wrong type person. I used that as motivation. I did not want anyone to tell me, I told you so. I just was so driven to change my life, and I did.
Wow, there's so many takeaways in there. Like, I just love that, you know, you can pick up lessons all throughout. Like you heard her say, she told her husband who said, no, you can't have it. How many times have you had a customer, a potential customer be like, oh, my husband says no. And she said to Caleb, like, I'm going to do this start to finish. You know, like, I'm like, oh, I've never said that back to someone. I'm just like, oh, I don't want to get in the middle of your marriage. Okay. You know, and it's just kind of like, hey, you know, that's cool that you got, I obviously get to have to run this past him. What if you promised him that you're going to stick with it? That's going to be extra accountability for you. You know, like that might be the thing. Like obviously Caleb was like, what do you say to that? When your wife's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to finish it. You say, okay, let's see it. And just being all in from the get-go and not really knowing what it is, but just knowing that like you had a yearning to fill something.
Yes. I need a change.
When you look back now and you said in the beginning, like, you know, you pushed so hard to get this job at this elite school and be this teacher, and it was something you weren't even truly passionate about. It's almost like subconsciously, you know, like, was it, I just knew I needed something else.
Well, and the crazy thing is, Beachbody kept coming up in my life. There were a couple of opportunities when I was in college, to become a turbo instructor. I had never led a class before, ever. And every time I would see an opening like that, I was really intrigued to do it. And I even went to an interview once and they were going to hire me to do this. And I backed out. I was scared. Like, I just feel like there were signs along the way that I was supposed to be doing this. I just didn't know where to start, how to do it, anything like that. So
that's super interesting. And you could think of that as like, how many times do we say we have to expose people to this? You know, people don't ever say yes really on the first time. It might have sounded like Lauren said yes on the first time, but it wasn't her first exposure. Like she was getting bits and pieces of it here and there. So obviously you had a passion for the fitness. You missed that in your life. It made you feel better. You know, what is your opinion of just the Beachbody coaching system? It, you know, it's different than a lot of other health companies.
Right. I always used to call it like the triple threat, but I know Vito calls it trifecta, and I completely agree with him. You need all three to be successful. At least that's how I feel. I already kind of talked about doing a fitness program from start to finish. That's how I got started. I can't talk enough about how Shakeology has helped me. I literally was someone who craved brownies every single night. Like 8 o'clock would hit and I'd be like, where are my brownies? And it's crazy because I didn't really know much about Shakeology when I signed up. I just kind of went for it. Didn't know what to expect. And I ordered it. And I remember a couple of weeks later, I was sitting on a Zoom and I thought to myself, man, I can't remember the last time I craved brownies. So it was just a big wake up call to me. Like, man, my body is getting what it needs. It's finally getting the nutrients that it's been craving. And so I'm no longer craving this junk anymore. At least no longer to the degree where I couldn't handle it. Like I had no control over it. If I needed brownies, I was having brownies. Yeah. And then I also really, this is TMI over here, but I struggled with IBS for so long. I went a couple of years without being able to digest dairy at all. So no more Activia over here because I don't need it.
Those are huge changes.
Yeah.
I love the details of that. It's like those are, you want to have, that's like telling a good story when you can get details like that. And that might be you looking back, like, you know, like I always tell people, like, I remember the day I was driving and I couldn't remember where I was going and it clicked. That's because I drink soda from the moment I get up to the moment I go to bed. Like, just a clear story for Lauren to be able to be like, I craved brownies. I had no control. I would go to the gas station at 10 p.m. at night and get brownies if I needed to, kind of thing. Like, that's the kind of stuff that connects with people. But even if you can collect those from your challengers too. Like, I was teaching a group fitness class today and we did a quad stretch and this lady looked at me and said, I've never been able to pull my leg back into a quad stretch before. Like, it's those kind of things that I think strike people different. Sometimes we get numb to that. I lost 20 pounds, by the way. But to be able to be like, I don't need activity, how do you say it? I obviously never use
Activia.
Anymore. So, like, think about those details in your life. They make it more memorable. But then also think about when a challenger tells you a story like that, like, try to, like, let that hit you. Like, that really hit me when that woman was like, I can actually do a quad stretch. Like, dude, who cares if you lose any weight? Like, that's going to bring so much benefit to your life. Okay, so still kind of like, this is Lauren, maybe a year ago or so. So you're teaching, you've got this teaching job, and you are now coaching. How did you balance that?
At first I was definitely doing a lot of chronic coaching. I think I started to see that my passion was not teaching, and I found myself wanting to work on the business more than I was being present with my job. But luckily in this business, we do a lot of personal development. We do a lot of professional development as well. So I kept tweaking things. And I think that's so important in this business because you're never going to have it perfect. And sometimes you'll lose sight of things that are going well. Sometimes, you know, you'll see something that you need to improve on and you just keep making little tweaks. So I kept I kept having the mindset that I needed to be a CEO. And so once I got a hang of it, what I would do is I would work during my lunch break. I'd go home. I lived 2 blocks away from school, so that was super easy for me. And then I would come home, work out, and then I would work on my business until Caleb got home from work. So I definitely think having a schedule like that routine made life so much easier.
Heck yeah. A couple of things in that. Like, I love how you said you kept tweaking it. You're never going to make it perfect. I remember hearing something like a long time ago about just do it. It's never going to be perfect. Just anything in life. And like, if you can just remember that in coaching, you're never going to have it perfect. It's never going to look how you probably think you want it to look or feel like you think you want it to feel, because it's like this living thing. So just do it and tweak along the way and like let that bring you some peace of mind and less stress to know It's never going to be.
I know Rob Dial, he has a really great podcast. In one episode, he was talking about how most people do ready, aim, fire, and how really what you need to do is ready, fire, then aim. Go back in and make those adjustments. But the most important thing is to take action.
Trina used to yell that at me like the first year I started working for her, and I was like, I don't know what that I was like, that's backwards. I was like, that makes no sense. But yes, now it makes sense to me because you're going to be able to make it even better if you just take action. And I also loved a good tip there is, okay, so when she was doing this, when she was balancing teaching and coaching, which she still is, you're not technically done teaching, but so she said, I worked at my lunch hour, but she went home and then she worked before Caleb got home, her husband. Like she didn't say no distractions, but those were situations where she had no distractions. I think when we try to coach, when we're distracted, it can feel more chronic-y, you know? Like you could have stayed in the teacher lounge and tried to do it, but you probably would have heard other things going on, like easily distracted. So what time in your day can you just have that no distraction time? Like I can't believe how early I get up now, but I crave the no distraction time. Because my kids keep getting up earlier and earlier and I want more and more to do, but man, it feels good to get that stuff done. Lauren, we didn't talk about this in your answers at all. And I'm wondering if you would mind sharing some of the obstacles you've had to do with being a teacher and being a Beachbody coach, not so much balancing it, but having these two roles that some people might think don't align.
Right. I know some of you know this story, but last year I actually had my principal called me out on Beachbody. And basically she told me that people were questioning what my true passion is, which I look back on it now and I'm like, okay, well, you were right. Like, but anyways, she pretty much, I wouldn't say she gave me an ultimatum, but I mean, she brought me to tears and thinking that I shouldn't be doing this. And it was really hard to push through that. And luckily I found ways to move around it. Luckily on Facebook, you can make Facebook lists. So all of my coworkers I have on that list. So if I'm posting something about Beachbody, I put them on there so they can't see my post. But I mean, some people just aren't going to get it. And your passion is going to be questioned. Your integrity is going to be questioned. But I think the thing that kept me going through all of this, and even though like I totally coasted during that time, I think the thing you have to ask yourself is, are my intentions good? And if you have good intentions and you know that you're meaning well and you're leading with your heart, that is the only thing that you can do.
Amen. Is this the truth? And is it in good intention? Mm-hmm. Don't ever feel bad about posting if you can say yes to both those. Lauren, you said coasting during that time, and I'm curious because like myself included, when someone like boom drops that negativity bomb on you, it can be a little paralyzing. And do you feel like that slowed you down a little bit?
Oh yeah, I struggled.
What did you do to like maintain? Obviously you were treading water during that time, but it wasn't the same amount of maybe excitement and momentum you had once had. So you said you pushed through. Like what were some things you did to push through?
I just kept going. I posted every single day. And I honestly think the thing that helped me the most was just sharing my journey. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I was relating to a lot of people and helping people. And even though it wasn't necessarily showing up in my business, I knew that that was going to help me later.
So it sounds like you pictured the people, you thought of the people that you knew you were helping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that just might be one person. Like we talk about avatars and stuff all the time. Like maybe it's like, I got to post for my avatar, man. Like screw all these other haters. Like they're not meant to work with me, but my avatar needs me. Like just be authentically you, which is, it's like a fearless act to do that. But it's a powerful act to do that. Lauren, let's talk about your journey with pregnancy. So many things. So I'm just going to hand it over to you and kind of share that story as you entered this phase in your life. What were some of the things that you went through in that story?
Right. So Caleb and I finally reached the point where we decided we were ready to start a family. We were married for a couple of years, high school sweethearts. So we'd been together for a long time. Finally decided that it was time. And I remember I had only been coaching for like 3 months when we decided. And I remember I actually reached out to Sarah Morrison, which is so funny at the time. Like she was like celebrity to me. And just because, you know, she was someone who's successful. She was a diamond coach in the business. But I remember Sarah called me and I was like, oh my gosh, Sarah's calling me on the phone right now. But she talked to me about how like, it's okay. Like, yeah, you're going to gain weight. It's going to be fine. Most people just kind of throw in the towel when they become pregnant. And it's really powerful and inspiring when people can push through that and keep going and share their journey and share their belly. And so from the get-go, I was so excited to be able to share that part of my journey. And sadly, it didn't happen that way for us. We found ourselves struggling with infertility, and it was really hard. And I felt alone, and I was the first person in my family that didn't get pregnant in their first attempt. Here we are sitting at, now it's been 2 years, and just the waiting, the not knowing was so hard, and I felt so alone. And Caleb, his parents kind of struggled with infertility as well for 5 years, and then they adopted. And so that's where his mind went right away. And eventually I got it through to him that I so badly wanted to carry a child. And Caleb's a saint and understood. And so we went to a fertility clinic, and basically we're told that it would be nearly impossible for us to get pregnant on our own. And our only option to do this would be to do IVF, in vitro fertilization. And so luckily my school covered almost all the costs, aside from our copay, which is a blessing. But it took us 2 attempts. And I remember being completely devastated in the first failed attempt. But I'm actually going to back up here just a second, because in that loneliness, I had talked to so many people who were also struggling with infertility, or people who took a long time to get pregnant. And I was amazed at how many people really struggled with this. And I had never heard of it before. Like I heard of a couple people having to adopt, but like I didn't understand how many people truly struggled with this. And I don't know. I just had this gut feeling that I needed to be that voice. I needed to be that person to tell others that it's okay. You shouldn't be ashamed about it. You don't have to suffer in silence. And I wanted to find that sense of community. And I sat on this for probably a good 5-6 months before I actually went public and shared. And the thing I want to tell you this is it's super overwhelming sharing something so personal about yourself. But in this business, you don't start in day one being like, hey, I'm struggling with infertility. We're doing IVF. Follow my journey. Like, this is all about baby steps. It's 5 feet out of your comfort zone, and you just keep pushing yourself that much further. I had been coaching for 1.5 years before I started sharing this part of my journey. And I know I'm probably one of the people who is the most transparent with this, but it evolved into that. But basically it took 2 rounds of IVF to get pregnant. And the second round, we transferred 2 healthy embryos, and 10 days later found out we were expecting twins. And we were just absolutely over the moon, thrilled. I was probably the happiest pregnant woman you would have ever met. Never complained about being pregnant. I just was so excited. And our world flipped upside down. I went into labor suddenly at 23 weeks, 0 days. And it was super fast. Within the hour, my contractions were only 3 minutes apart, and we made it to the hospital, and they pretty much told us there was nothing that they could do. They gave me medicine to kind of slow my contractions. But that's about it. And I just remember all of our dreams, all of our hopes of what we pictured in our life with our twins was just shattered. And someone came into the room and pretty much told us that there was less than a 50% chance of survival, and adding add twins on top of that and it decreases it even more. I don't know the exact percentage, but it was pretty much, we just went into it knowing I'm going to try to stay on bed rest as long as I can. And I made it about 24 hours. And it was time to deliver. And Blake was born first, 1 pound, 6 ounces. And then Kenzie was born 1 pound, 3 ounces. And Blake had to be resuscitated upon delivery, which for a 1 pounder is really hard on their bodies, and ended up having severe brain trauma as a result. And he passed away 9 days later. So, and then Kenzie is still in the NICU, and she's fighting for her life. She's one feisty, fierce little girl. Thank goodness for that. And she just hit 5 pounds today. So, but that's pretty much the gist of our story. And the reason I'm on this call tonight is because I cannot imagine having gone through this experience without having this opportunity. And I thought I was a pretty positive person, but I was so pessimistic before this opportunity. I was negative Nancy. I gossiped. I was not a happy person. And I don't know where the strength is coming from, but I do know that I have found that within personal development. And I'm so thankful for this community, and I'm so thankful for personal development to give me that foundation of the strength, because I honestly feel like life could throw anything at me right now and I would survive. I don't want life to throw those things at me, but I feel I can handle them because of the foundation that this business has given me.
Yeah. That is devastating. And I think a lot of us might be questioning, I don't know if I could be that strong in that situation. And, I mean, backing up from, okay, Caleb and I are going to get pregnant, at that point, it's like, when you look at this whole 3-year period, and back then it was like, okay, how do I coach when I'm pregnant? Kind of hesitations about that. You worked through it and you decided right then, I'm going to tell my story when I'm pregnant. Little did you know it was going to be this way more intense story that obviously pulls so many people in, have people cheering for you, praying for you, wanting updates, sending love, gifts, all that kind of stuff. But do you think you just had committed back then? So it was just I already decided I'm in for whatever.
Well, yeah. And I was thinking about it earlier. I thought IVF was my story. I had no idea, this happened, and I'm like, holy crap. This, I can't even fathom everything that's happened in the last couple of years. Life flipped upside down, but I had a really great childhood, and I just, when IVF happened, I was like, okay, well, this is a rough patch. It's hard, but we'll get through it. And yeah, I think looking back when I first started sharing, I remember listening to one of Lindsay Matway's calls on the National Wake Up Call, and she had shared that she had a false positive pregnancy test. And it was the thing that got me thinking those couple of months before I started sharing. And the thing that kept me sharing was that coaches do what others are not willing to do. And I don't know, I'm someone who has always had a passion for helping others. I never had a voice before. I never considered myself to be someone that would inspire others or share something so intimate, but it evolved into that.
Yeah. I mean, you were definitely in training to be able to get there. I love that coaches do what other people are not willing to do. In all aspects. of life. I truly do feel like being a coach benefits any lifestyle, even if you don't have this desire. Being a coach doesn't mean you have to be a 15-star diamond. It's going to benefit every single life one way or another. Lauren, I just have a question for you outside of one that I asked earlier. Man, do you feel like you live in the now a lot? Like, I would imagine if you lived in the future, you would maybe go insane.
Right. It's so funny that you say that, because Caleb and I were talking on our way here about this, because I used to be someone who would always be future mindset, and I had a really hard time focusing on today, focusing on the now. And with Kenzie being in the NICU for 103 days, I have no choice but to sit here and take it day by day. And has just taught me to just find the value in the little things. But it's training. Like, it takes training your mind. I know a week ago, Kenzie got to do feedings for the first time, bottle feedings and nursing. And I remember I was so excited. But the thing that comes after that, once she masters it, is she gets to come home. So quickly, my mind snaps to the next thing. Like, okay, it's time for her to come home, instead of still staying in that happy moment, that seeing how far she's come, and just taking that day by day and watching that growth, and just taking it even minute by minute, honestly. But it's crazy. Like, you have to train your brain through that process to just focus on today, focus on the now.
What, it's kind of like different situations, but I imagine maybe you can relate to this in your journey. Like, I think sometimes with coaching, and I've done this before too, like I'm going to share something really personal and vulnerable, but sometimes my hesitation isn't so much people's feedback as, what if next week it's not like this anymore? You know, or like, what if I don't stick with this? Or what if I, like, you know, for me, what if I do end up back on anxiety medication? Like, thinking those things to like hinder your post right then. Like, and I'm sure, have you felt that? And like, what did you say to yourself?
Oh yeah, it happens all the time, especially with this journey. I feel like I sometimes jinx it, but at the same time, like, people want to see real. They want to see that. Like, a couple weeks ago, I went back to work last Monday, and I was so determined to finish Core de Force by the end of the school year. And I posted that I'm going to finish this by the last day of school. And that first week, I worked out 2 times. I was just exhausted. It wasn't perfect, but people were commenting when I came forward and said, this week was not this was not my intention. This happened. I'm not proud of it, but I'm not giving up. And people were so inspired by that. And they commented that they were inspired, because most people don't do that. They hide behind it, and they don't want to have that people see their failure so openly, but people need to see it, because they're feeling that same way too.
I love that. Was such bold language. I'm not proud of it, but I'm not giving up. I just think, like, I feel like when I try to share something like that, I'm like dancing around it. Like, I don't want to make it seem that bad, but like, what a great way to be bold. Like, I'm not proud of it, but I'm not giving up. Like, just being bold in your messaging, it comes off as more conviction to people, which is always good. Do you mind if I ask you about Blake?
That's fine. Yeah.
I cannot imagine Blake has passed away, and now you can't just go dark.
Right.
Like, how did you even find the strength? Like, what was that even? I don't even know if you can put into words. Like, I can't relate. I can't imagine, but you handled it so beautifully is how it appeared.
Right.
I'm sure it didn't feel beautiful at all.
You know, I think about this often, because I've connected with a lot of people on Instagram who've lost child. And I'm very fortunate, because we had 2 at the same time. And I see people who lose a child, and some of them who struggled with infertility, and they lose one, and then they go back to square one of the not knowing. And I credit personal development for giving me the mindset to see someone else's a different situation being worse than my own. And I still do that, you know, like sometimes I'll make a comment like, you know, it's really hard that, you know, we lost him, but I cannot imagine losing a toddler. I can't imagine losing a child that can turn to you and say, I love you, you know? And like, I credit a lot to Caleb too, because he is just naturally that positive of person. And from the get-go, we're just like, we just have to focus on this day by day. And, you know, it's not that we don't think about Blake, because we do. But when we're here at the NICU, like, our focus is Kenzie, and our focus is being strong for her, because that's what she needs us to do for her.
Yeah. There's no perfect way to do it. There's never one solution that's going to work for everyone. You know, it sounds like personal development really gave you a mindset to choose empathy and gratitude first.
Right.
And if you lead with those things, you're not going to be able to have as much anger, you know? So, Lauren, let's talk about coaching. So, to recap, she's been a coach for a while. She's a diamond coach, but she's kind of been coasting. And a bomb is dropped on her life, her plans, like everything she had pictured, nothing went that way. It was literally bomb after bomb after bomb. And, but, you know, gosh, you know, I kind of thought, like, when I first heard that IVF didn't work the first time, I'm like following the post. I'm excited. And there was that post about it didn't work. And it was heartbreaking. I was like, is Lauren going to stick around? Because there are a lot of coaches who have a bomb like that dropped in their life who just quit. And your convictions just got stronger. You know, that doesn't always happen. But talk about that shift from like coasting to like, oh no, this is it.
Honestly, the thing that it comes from is having a powerful why. And I look back at the time that I was coasting. First off, I had a really awful case of diamonditis. If you don't know what diamonditis is, it's a term that I created. I don't know if I've maybe stole it from somebody else, but I don't think I did. It's like senioritis, but for coaches. Senioritis, you worked so hard, you got into college, you're just kind of coasting through the year, calling it good. For me, I hit diamond, I built a solid foundation, you know, and then I coasted. So, but at that point, I didn't have something truly pushing me. I had always said that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but I just always kind of was waiting for that to happen instead of making it happen. And when this happened and I saw things I never thought I would see before, I just decided, like, I didn't have the choice to wait anymore. It was either all in or all out. And when you're faced with a life event like that, it's like I said, you have two choices, and I chose to just kill it. Because, and here's another thing with my personal situation, is Kenzie's a micro preemie. Micro preemies, being a 23-weeker, I'm not sending her to daycare. There's no way in heck I'm putting her in a daycare with other germs or anything. And I'm not hiring a nanny. I am going to be the one that is there with her. And when I put myself in that situation, like, there's no longer a question. I need to get up and I need to work for this. And I need to make time for it. And I think you just have to have a why that is so clear, and you have a vision that you are clearly working for every single day. Because if you have that, you're going to go crawl into bed at the end of the night, and if you haven't done the things on your list, you're going to lie there and you're going to feel really guilty about it.
You will. And you'll get up and you'll probably do
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you hear so much about a why, and whys have to be powerful things, but don't compare your whys to other. And it might start like when I started, I wanted a Garmin, but then it got to the point where it kind of similar, like I didn't want my kids to take naps at daycare because I used to hate taking naps at daycare, and I want to have the flexibility to be able to pick them up. It will evolve as your dreaming big gets bigger and bigger, and your confidence in yourself gets bigger and bigger. So think about what your why is. Like, what would you really love? And try to like shut down any doubt, fear, assumptions, like just let yourself dream big. And what would you love? Would you love to be able to take your whole family to wherever they're from? Like, I would love to take my whole family to Scotland because there's much people in my family who are never going to be able to afford that. And I would love to do that for them. Like, what would it be? Like, let that be your why. It's so impressive, Lauren, that you decided, you looked at the things, you really just took action. You could have shut down, like you said, just thrown in the towel, shut down, like isolate, give up. But you looked at, where can I make improvements? Where can I take action? Where can I take control? Right. And it seems like that looking there fired you up to just go.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, anything else you want to say there?
I was just going to say the thing that made it easier for me to take action without taking a lot of time away from being present was putting systems into place. I made a YouTube video talking about what the coaching opportunity is while sharing little snippets of what my story is and telling what coaches do and what you can expect from it. And every time I would do an action post on it, I would send that to them. So I'm not sitting there having these long drawn out conversations, because I'm a blue. I like my warm invites. I like to know what their goals are and really get to know them before I do any invitation at all. And so that was something that really made it easier to take action.
Yeah, that's smart for sure. I definitely recommend, if you don't have a video, I have one that's just why be a coach? And it's 5 minutes. And I talk about, the impact I get to make, what it's done for my life, just quickly. And I just ask, does this speak to you and make you want to learn more? And it's a great way to kind of like intro.
Yes. I do really quick I just saw Riley comment. I do have to really give Team Heart and Hustle a huge shout out, because when all of this happened, they all stepped up 100%. And I missed like a month worth of Zooms because life was crazy. I didn't know how to fully be present for myself and be present for the team. And they completely stepped up and just took over. So
that's awesome. Power of a team.
Yeah.
Okay. You needed to keep your family and you going. So let's share some more tips. You shared obviously some systems and a couple examples of things that made it easier for you. Video is a great way for people to have trust and really, be able to build that relationship fast without having to go back and forth. And what else, Lauren, have you done that's helped?
I also created a Woofu application, which made life a whole lot easier. I could see exactly what their goals are. That way, when I went back to talk to them, I knew exactly what was going to help them. But I would say the biggest thing is I stopped being wishy-washy, and I just started believing fully in what I had to offer. I would have these one-on-one calls with people who were interested in coaching, and I was willing to give that time because I was so confident that this was going to help them. And I would full out say that I would hear them out, let them share what their struggles were, what they were successful in the past with, and what their goals are now. And I would listen to them. And then I would just say, if I gave you a solution that would fix those things, would you do it? And they said yes. And then I would just say, this is what you're going to do. And I just threw out the wishy-washy, and I just started saying, this is going to change your life, but you need to do it this way. And I really think that from sharing my story and being so vulnerable, people trusted me. They always say they have to know, like, and trust you. And I feel like by being so open, people felt like, if I don't want to say like I feel like a celebrity, but like when I go back to my hometown, people like stop and stare. Like, they know who I am, you know, they know what's happened to me, and it's kind of crazy, but at the same time, like, it's moving my business forward.
Yeah. And probably therapeutic,
Oh yeah.
empowering as well. For sure, people need to know, like, and trust you. The more vulnerable you can be, the more you can think of specific details and stories. Like, you're going to speed that up. And I'm so glad you said wishy-washy, because when you were talking a little bit before, I was just thinking you have to be confident in what it is that you're selling. You know, we're selling a better version of them. They might think we're selling Shakeology. They might think we're selling a fitness program. We're selling a better version of them. And we know that Shakeology is going to help them get there. Being in your group is going to help them get there. Being exposed to a positive person like you, who's okay with getting better themselves and wants that, is going to help them get there. And if you're not convicted about that, you come off as you don't believe in your product. I'm not going to buy something from someone who doesn't believe in it. You know, like, that's the person being like, don't really get those. Like, I was just talking to my friend about bike shorts. She's like, don't get those ones. Like, she was just kind of like, yeah, those ones at the top of the line, but like, you have to be like, this, I think, like, I always put myself in the spot, like, I love Shakeology. I really couldn't imagine not having it in a day. You know, like, I freaking love it, and it's made me feel so much better. It's probably going to do that for someone else 99% of the time. Like, I have to tell them about it. So yeah, I love that, just bold language. If I gave you a solution to fix those things, would you do it? Yeah. I mean, it really sets people up differently in their thinking to be like, okay, I'm doing this. Let's listen to the plan. Like, that's a serious call to action. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways tonight, Lauren, for sure. You can't be wishy-washy. You have to remember you're not doing them a favor. You know, they're not doing you a favor. You're doing them a favor. Lauren, any other tips or anything that you'd want to share on just changes compared to like a couple years ago to now?
Trying to think. I think just the biggest thing is just to continually reevaluate your why. I think that's the biggest thing. And just don't give up. Keep going. Why not you? Be that person who decided to go for it.
I love that. Reevaluate your why. And I loved earlier when you just said, it's not going to be perfect. You're always going to tweak. Mm-hmm. You're always going to grow. Your why is going to get bigger. I'm curious. Caleb has been an amazing Beachbody husband throughout this all. You know, it's not just Lauren sharing her story. This is Caleb's story for sure too. What's his take on all this?
Caleb's a very quiet guy. He doesn't say a whole lot, but I remember in the beginning, I kept running it by him. Are you okay with me sharing this? And he was always like, oh yeah, whatever, you know, but I think it's weird for a guy to have that, you know, his wife be so open and everything. But it was interesting because we were talking about the infertility stuff, and you know, he didn't fully agree with me, the suffer in silence, that, you know, that people do that. But I think that men are also very like internal. They don't like to express that kind of thing, but he's really handled it all really well. And it's interesting because through this journey, like he's definitely becoming more supportive with Beachbody because he can see the changes, the growth in the way that it's helped me.
Yeah.
So, and he was never like I don't want you to do this, but he's just always kind of, you know, sat in the back and didn't really say anything. Just kind of let me do my thing.
What? I know, like, it's all about being in the now, but obviously your why is to not be a teacher anymore. Like, yeah. What's the update on that?
Well, I am planning on resigning. One of the things that was holding me back for a really long time was health benefits, because Caleb at the same time is doing a job that he absolutely loves. He's working in contracting. He loves doing woodworking, loves fixing up houses, that kind of thing. But it's really scary knowing that the health benefits comes from my job, and that's security to me. And so that's been the toughest thing. But we're looking into getting our own health insurance. And it's kind of nice knowing, like, I never actually looked into it before. I never took that step. And now, like, I have a couple of options on the plate or on a table. And as soon as, like, we pick one, I'm resigning. So it'll probably be in the next month or so. Yeah, I'm really excited.
One more question, and then definitely, and I haven't been watching the chat. If there were any like burning questions on there, someone let me know. But okay, I imagine people don't, there's a lot of people in your life who probably don't understand this decision, or it seems crazy to them that you worked so hard and you're supposed to be a teacher. Obviously, everything you learned in college totally is still being used in what you do. I never think anything in college is a waste, but this is so different. Like, what are the reactions? How do you handle it?
It's really interesting because for the longest time, my mom was my biggest naysayer. And anytime I would bring up Beachbody, she would just change the subject. But it was funny because if my sister, Lindsay, would talk about it, she was fine. But she knew that I wanted to leave my job for it. And I think she was super proud of me for, you know, pushing through and becoming a teacher despite what other people thought, or, you know, despite what my future looked like when I was younger. And now all of a sudden, she is a person who is actually super supportive of doing this. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, she doesn't get it. She's a teacher. I think she sees in me that I have the potential to be an amazing teacher. She sees that in me, but I don't like teaching because it's never good enough. You always have something you have to bring home. You always have to be going above and beyond and tweaking things. And tweaking is good, but you have to be passionate about it. And I am not passionate about it. And I'm sorry, I would rather stay at home with my daughter and be able to work on my time when she's napping, or, you know, choose my hours. And I'm tired of people telling me what I'm supposed to be doing. Or, yeah, I want to live life the way that I want to live it. And my passion in life is helping others. It's another reason why I went into teaching. And I feel like I really get to know people better and help people more through coaching than I do teaching.
Yeah.
And I can turn it off when I want.
That's a whole nother Zoom.
Oh yeah, sorry.
What people want in life is love, happiness, success, and that stuff isn't really ever talked about so much in schools or taught, or, you know, just my friend Freeland and I were talking about that today. So, and that's what you're teaching more of now.
Yeah.
Awesome. You guys, thank you all for being on. Lauren had so many great things, a great story with tons of lessons that you can take and just apply when you need it, peppered in. And I really like, when I look at you, Lauren, I'm like, this is one who's just faced so much adversity, but I think you've tackled it with your heart and empathy. You know, like, it'd be really easy to just be mad at your mom, but right. You know, you're compassionate and it's gotten to a better place. It'd be really easy to be like, screw you, principal. But you like took the feedback, thought about it, applied some of it, and took action to fix it. You know, like, you really looked at adversity and didn't get pissed. I think you like looked for a way to get around it. Right. And with your heart, which is a lot easier for me to say than do sometimes, but a powerful thing. Yay. Thank you so much. I'll post the recording for other teammates that didn't get a chance to watch. Lauren, thank you for sharing.
Thanks for having me.
And then now on this Zoom too. So we're all rooting for you. All right.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everyone.